Hello everyone. I'm Fatima Azam. I'm the community manager at Ejad Labs. Today, I'll be hosting two of the amazing and famous personalities in the industry in Pakistan nowadays. They're working on an amazing project which is gonna innovate and change retail in Pakistan forever. They're the founders of Jugnu. I would like to welcome you both. Hello, Yasir, and hello, Sharoon. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi Fatma, thank you.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into the interview and we're going to start with your educational backgrounds and your journey from the educational backgrounds towards the corporate sector and your work right now on Jugnu. So, would you like to tell us about that?
Sure. My name is Sharoon, and I graduated from Ghulam Isa Khan Institute in 2009, and had an unconventional path. Despite being an engineer, I landed in a management training program in a consumer goods company, Unilever. And over there, rather than working in the factory or supply chain, I ended up working in sales. So did a lot of key account management, trade category management, sales, operations planning, and all that. And tried to find ways through which technology could really fit into my work, and that's how the entire idea of Salesflo and then Jugnu materialized.
Okay,
I had
amazing.
a kind of a similar career with Unilever, but prior to that, I did my bachelor's and master's in computer science, and then I actually headed on to do my MBA. So I had a quite a mix in terms of technical as well as management background before joining a corporate career. So joined in at Unilever as a management trainee in 2007, and to be honest, that was a learning ground as well, like any university. So was there for about 8 years, did various roles from field sales to key account management, shopper marketing, and my last role is more around route to market and sales operations. So post that, myself and Charoon, we both met at Unilever and we decided, why not try to solve the retail problem for the industry. And we both left our jobs from there and started off Salesflo, which is doing well today in Pakistan. It happens to be managing, close to 1% of Pakistan's GDP. And then, in the last 2 years, we focused our energies on transforming the retail landscape from a B2B e-commerce point of view, and I've been working on Jugnu lately.
That's amazing. That was actually going to be my next question, that how did you guys meet each other? Because you're such a famous team and people admire your teamwork and everything. So I was going to ask you, but thank you for answering already. I would like to ask you guys, what was your vision in starting the company, and how has the vision and the company evolved ever since?
So, well, it's not like you have a very clear written down vision when you start off. It's something that you have in your head as an imagination, as how you would want the world, how you would want the world to be. So it generally starts with an imagination where you want the world to be in a certain way, and that certain way was, it had to be digital, it had to be transformed from a process point of view, it had to be a bright future for everyone. So that imagination was there, that we wanted to really transform the retail landscape, and that's something that we saw as more of a professional objective to achieve. But when we started off in terms of starting to achieve that professional objective, we saw that there were a lot of other personal objectives that we kind of saw that could be possible when you start a startup. So while achieving the retail landscape transformation, we saw that we were improving livelihoods for people. We were able to also impact the economic upliftment of small businesses. So it all started to become a journey, because you on one end, today Salesflo and Jugnu as a combined entity have a direct employment of about 400 plus people, and we indirectly also impact the lives of more than 10,000 people who are empowered using our platform. So for every startup, the journey, the vision is generally a very selfish professional vision, and it starts off. And as we grow, it becomes a more of a a long-term vision for the entire country you live in, and it kind of unfolds into every single aspect of your life.
Okay, great. The scale that you guys are working on, it's immense, and I'm sure it's going to grow bigger and bigger when time comes. So, talking about Jugnu, we would really like to know what's the business model, how does it work, the implementation. Can you explain it for us?
So Jugnu is basically a B2B e-commerce. We recruit a certain set of retailers who can happen to be anywhere. They get on board our platform, and then they place orders to us that we service within 24 hours to them. And it's actually, from a business model point of view, it's automation of the information value chain. It's an automation of the supply chain of goods, how they are delivered to that particular retailer, what kind of technology infrastructure and warehousing practices and logistics that we deploy in order to reach them. And I think what remains to be solved and what we are working towards is obviously the financial value chain and how we can bring about a certain change to that end. But from a business model point of view, I would say the business model is relatively simple. It's B2B e-commerce that we deal with. And the idea is clearly to be able to, completely change the way a retailer shops for his items and how he just gets on board Jugnu and, he feels that his needs are completely taken care of.
Okay, well explained. Thank you for that. So, both of you, you've had a long journey as a team together from Salesflo to Jugnu, and you've, mashallah, achieved so much together. So, what are some key challenges or the biggest challenges you've both faced as a team, and how did you overcome them?
So I think challenges evolve actually. There is hardly a day when you feel that the challenges are now done and dusted. So I think when we were starting off, probably Salesflow, it was really the idea of finding an MVP or cracking an MVP that really works. And once we saw initial traction, then it was really building an organization that can scale as you grow your product. How can you scale? And now with Jugnu again, I think I think living the same cycle again, which is building an organization from ground up all over again, finding an MVP, cracking an MVP, then building an organization that can continue to scale, in which founder plays a key role. But then again, I mean, the team should be empowered enough and great enough that they can carry the vision forward on daily basis, whether the founder is present to supervise everything or not. So I think that's maybe from my end. If
Yeah, I think the biggest, if you ask me, there are certain things that just come as a natural, instinct now. You just like, a lot of things work like clockwork, but areas that we really struggled with generally happen to be more around, um, getting the right type of talent. And a lot of times you would see that the type of talent required may not be necessarily available in the industry. So a lot of times it requires going and doing the heavy lifting in terms of creating that talent yourself. So evolving your own organization to become an institution first and then becoming a commercial entity later. So you got to be able to create the talent that you require, being able to impart and land the DNA, create a culture that can really thrive, create a culture of experimentation, create a culture of failing, create a culture of learning. So that's something that is time consuming, and at times the startup world is not really that patient. Everyone would start judging a startup very quickly in terms of failure of success. Sometimes by the check size you're raising, sometimes by the hoo-ha that you have outside in the community. But the founders would know that at times you have to put your head down and make sure that you are building an organization that can last, that can carry on its own without yourself as well. So the founders are involved in creating the talent. So the biggest challenges actually are centered around talent, because if you have the right talent, that great talent attracts more great talent.
Yep.
And if you have bad talent, that bad talent attracts more bad talent.
I think so. Probably one of the USPs that we have had with probably Salesflow, and now we're trying to emulate the same logic with Jugnu, is that we have never really gone out in the industry to hire, let's say, very senior recruits or mid-career recruits so far. We have always believed that getting younger talent on board that you can learn a lot of things with enables a lot of innovation to be unlocked. And this is precisely, one cycle with Salesflo. This is a cycle we have seen, that getting younger, fresh minds on board, working towards a certain common mission, it yields a lot of innovation that, a lot of expertise in the same industry or in the same field, I feel can't. So we have always been about building an institution within that is able to then solve a lot of challenges for the external world.
I'm sure a lot of people were looking forward to this answer because your team building and the culture in your organizations, Salesflo and Jugnu, it's famous and everyone wants to learn how to do it. So thank you for sharing that. Um, you talked about the challenges being new every day, and you talked about repeating the cycle with Jugnu that you did with Salesforce. So I would like to ask both of you, what like motivates you to continue the grind, like to keeps going, like what motivates you every day?
Well, for me, when I work with my team and I see them excited, solving the problems, and having a meaningful, set of areas to work on, that's kind of that excites me as well. And when I feel that I can add value in terms of the organization and in value in terms of people's own learnings and skills, that really excites me in terms of being part of a team that is solving big problems. What happens is that there is no playbook at times. And in fact, majority of the times you will not have a specific playbook available that this is how a certain task is to be done. You may have a playbook in a lot of areas, in terms of organization building and certain one-on-one courses for a lot of things. But as a startup, there will be like tremendous amount of things that you do not have a playbook on. There is no set SOP in terms of how to crack it. So it's all about experimentation. It's all about how do you create it for the first time. So there's a lot of invention involved there. And we've seen this time and again that when we have a very young team coming in and we explain them the problem and we try to work with them on the solution, the type of ideas, the type of execution, the type of grit that they come up with is unparalleled. And that adds a lot of energy in the entire organization. So it's basically when there is five set of people that are really excited, those five set of people excite the remaining 20 people and becomes a 25 set of excited people, and that starts to further excite more people. So it's really the fun is in the journey. There's no end that you're really saying that you once you reach that the fun has to end. It's the journey that you really enjoy.
So for me, I think it's very similar. I think it's the people that you work with, and you start to relate to them, and then you're when you're joined in a mission to solve a certain problem, and let's say the problem is big enough, which in the case of Jugnu, I genuinely feel it's a big problem that we are trying to solve. Then you bond, and when you bond with your team, then it's only natural, that you want to work together more and more. So for me, I think it's the team that I work with. I want to get up to work so that I can be around those people and we can continue to solve problems. And so I think it's the people angle to what you do that at least is the biggest motivator for me.
Great, that's very insightful, and I'm sure it's very helpful to people listening. I would like to ask you one final question, which I'm sure a lot of the people that watch our podcast and Fireside chats, they're looking forward to it. What would you advise new entrepreneurs or people who are entering the industry or just starting their grind? What would your advice be?
So I think this is something which there will be an element of recency to it, but I genuinely believe that as the ecosystem in Pakistan is now starting to change. I mean, when we were starting off in 2015, there was hardly any ecosystem, hardly any fundraising happening on all. So we learned along the way, bootstrapped, and kept on building. I think I one thing I feel with the new set of co-founders these days is you have to have a long-term orientation and a long-term plan. Think long-term. That if whatever you're doing, if you were to do this for the rest of your life, would you want to do it the way that you are doing it? I think that orientation, I feel, is essential. I mean, that's at least something that I ask myself, that if I were to do this job for the rest of my life, would I do what I'm doing today, or would I not do it? So that's something that I feel that I would want to share with the new founders.
Something similar. I think your experiences teach you a lot, and I think a lot of time the fresh graduates or anyone who's coming in to a startup, they always feel that the goalpost is basically raising a big round. That's the kind of goalpost that you have, and if that's a goalpost, of course, it will still be very short lived in terms of what you can achieve. I think it's very important to have getting your hands dirty in terms of whatever problem you're going to be solving. Until you don't roll up your sleeves and really build an extreme amount of empathy and an obsession in terms of solving the problem, you will not be able to do justice to it. You got to be engrossed in it so much that you start to imagine outcomes which may not be that practically possible. And then when you have such imagination, that's when you start to really create a new path for someone. So getting your hands dirty is very important, and thinking long term. So if you're trying to do something for the very short term, of course it won't really fly. And then while you're thinking long term, you got to have this capability of zooming in and zooming out. Think long term, take a larger perspective, but when you are going to be executing, understand at the very granular level where the rubber hits the road, understand the granularity of how the problem is to be solved, and contribute towards it as well. Don't expect that your team will be the ones doing the micro elements of it. So you got to be able to zoom into the problem, and when that's solved, you got to be able to zoom out again and take a bird's eye view on how you're solving that for the overall economy.
Thank you so much, both of you, for giving us the time and your views on such insightful topics. I'm sure people would be amazed to listen to your point of views. I would like to thank you guys, and I would like to end this interview at this note.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you. I'm going to end this.